Welcome to our second week of the NFL preview for Backyard Brothers. Today, we are talking about the NFC East and the AFC West. Two divisions that'll be pretty important when it comes to playoff positioning. Obviously, it includes the Super Bowl champion in this group. But we're going to talk about the NFC East first. And we're doing it a little bit different this week, where based on feedback that we got last week that I really appreciated and that I agree with, it's not going to be Scott led. It's going to be Backyard Brothers led, and that's an important aspect of this. And so Dustin is going to start us off with the Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to share my screen. And take it away, Dustin.
All right. So starting off with the Cowboys. So I think something to mention, maybe it's sad for Cowboys fans, is that they're just famous for just choking in the playoffs, have great regular seasons and choke in the playoffs. And so last year was no different. They had fantastic offense, top of the league, as well as fantastic defense, with, fifth in points allowed. But then they get to the first round of the playoffs, wild card round, and get destroyed by Green Bay, which is just a story that Cowboy fans are all too familiar with. All right, Dak Prescott is moving on. So he led the league with 36 touchdown passes and 4,500 yards, was all pro. And then in the running back game, they brought back Ezekiel Elliott, which I don't necessarily agree with, but you do have some other good players there with CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, and then Jake Ferguson. So that means that yellow means that he was was an all-pro?
A Pro Bowler.
Pro Bowler. Okay. So they have a pretty good skill set there, lots of skilled players. I think that they downgraded with Ezekiel Elliott, but he's been there for a long time, and maybe it's a way to bring more fans back. All right, but moving on to the offensive line. So the offensive line is strong, especially with Zach Martin and Tyler Smith. Strong, they're great, but they have two rookies who are most likely going to start: Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma and Cooper Beebe, who are mostly going to be there. And then they got Terrence Steele on the edge there playing the right tackle.
And let me jump in and mention real quick that these two guys are changing positions, essentially. Tyler Guyton was a right tackle at Oklahoma, and he's expected to play left tackle and protect the blind side for Dak Prescott. Meanwhile, Cooper Beebe was the Big 12 offensive lineman 2 years in a row, but playing guard. So they're asking him to play center. So.
Yep, so they may have a little bit of growing pains, but we'll see how they do. Moving on to the defensive line. You got Micah Parsons, who plays this new evolved edge position, floats all around as one of the most explosive defensive players in the game. And you got DeMarcus Lawrence, who's been around for a long time and is a Pro Bowler and fantastic. And then joined by, let's see if we can do this, Osa Adigizua.
I think that's as close as anyone's going to get, yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely strong defensive line. But moving on to the linebackers, they struggled linebackers last year. They had injuries. They tried different things, having one linebacker or multiple linebackers kind of going between the two, and just struggled with it. But they brought over Eric Kendricks, who is proven and great. And then Damone Clark had over 100 tackles last season and will be returning as well. And all right, then on to the others. So we have in the secondary, Deron Bland last year had 5 pick sixes overall. Oops. Out of an overall 9 or overall. Sorry, 5 pick sixes out of 9 interceptions.
Deron said, "Don't talk about him like that."
What's worse, I dropped my paper. But hold on.
let me fill in there. I don't know if you're going to cover this, but 5 pick sixes is an NFL record for a season. No one has ever done that before, and 9 interceptions also led the league.
Yeah, and it was fantastic. Trayvon Diggs had 11 the year before, right? And so it was they set interceptions records right on top of each other, and just absolutely fantastic defensive secondary. They have several solid players: Donovan Wilson, Malik Hooker, Jordan Lewis are all there to help support. So hopefully if they're able to come back and have that be a strength of the defense, we can see success from the Cowboys again. All right, so moving on to the secondary. So depending on where Dak Prescott goes after this season and what happens this season, they got a backup in Cooper Rush. They also have Trey Lance there. Trey Lance was obviously a top pick several years ago, but has yet to really been able to prove himself. Royce Freeman is the backup back. Hopefully he can help relieve some of the pressure on Elliott. Hunter Lepke is a fullback. We got Cavante Turpin, and we're excited to see what he can do with the new rules with the return game, with a lot of speed out there. And then we got Ryan Flernay, who comes from Southeast Missouri State, but had fantastic numbers, and so I'll be excited to see if he's able to prove them in the NFL. And then they got their trenches. They've doubled down on the offensive line with Marshawn Nealand. And then in the defensive line with Justin Rogers. So with lots of rookies on the defensive line, they'll have a lot of energy there. Hopefully they can help to relieve Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence a little bit with all the pressure that's on that defensive line. All right, looking at the special teams, Brandon Aubrey was a rookie sensation, didn't miss a single kick until the last game of the season. And then Brian Anger has one of the best net punting averages in the NFL. Looking at coaches, Mike McCarthy. So he's been there for 5 years, but if we've talked about the Cowboys choking, that always is going to be on the head coach. And so this is kind of a win it all or get fired kind of season for him. I feel at least it's a Super Bowl or bust, and that even if they make it deep in the playoffs, if he can't get them to the Super Bowl, he'll be gone. I don't think that Jerry's going to have the patience for another choke in the playoffs. Let's see. Dan Quinn has moved on to become the head coach of the Commanders, replacing with Mike Zimmer, who was the coach of the Vikings. And he's back with the Cowboys after winning a Super Bowl back in '95. So there's some interesting things there. Any comments on any of these players, coaches, or anything about the Cowboys you guys want to chime in on?
I think first off, I 100% agree with you on Ezekiel Elliott coming back. It's just weird. I wasn't a fan of it either. You said that maybe it's kind of excite the fans a little bit since they were kind of used to him being around for a while. So, but I agree with you on that. One under the I guess rug player that I'm excited about with the Cowboys, who got a little playing time last year, but not a whole lot, is Deuce Vaughn. I really enjoyed watching him play at Kansas State a couple of years ago. Just fun, different player. I mean, he's I think 5'6" or something, and so he's super short. Reminds me a little bit of a Darren Sproles kind of guy, and he's just really fun to watch. So I'm a fan of his. I really liked him in college, so I kind of want to see him have better numbers, have more playing time. Hopefully, do better than Zeke. So that's something I'd like to see.
Yeah, well, Deuce Vaughn did really good in the preseason last year, and everyone was excited about him. And then I think he was lost for the year after 3 weeks, and that's why he didn't play a whole lot. I think he was injured. So when you're 5'6" and 180 pounds, you take a big hit from a linebacker and you're done. And so, but yeah. Let me go to this screen where Dustin, take it away again.
Yeah. So with some of the questions that we have here, we'll let Cody, since you're the first question, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah. So my question, I'll just go ahead and read it first, is they already have the recipe to success during the season. We already know that how good they are during the season. They're always appeared to be one of the best teams in the season. They're 36-15 the last 3 seasons, but they have not been in the NFC Championship game for eons. What do they need to fix in the postseason, and how can they fix it?
Yeah, I kept it pretty simple here. We need Dak in a time machine, and we need Elliott healthy and consistent. I think that the Dallas defense has everything they need to be successful, but if your offense isn't helping you out and your star players aren't playing like stars, that's what causes them to choke so frequently, I think, in those close games in the playoffs.
Anything else for you two guys?
All right, so
Okay.
Pam asked, will Zeke be able to carry on what Pollard left behind? What can be expected for this running back room?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm on the same train as you guys. Bringing back Ezekiel Elliott. Last year, they struggled with Tony Pollard in the running back 1 role, and so trying to bring Zeke back, but he hasn't hit 1,000 yards in 4 years now, I think. So he's not the same guy. Running backs have a short shelf life, and I think his days as the number 1 back are over. But at the same time, this Cowboys offense is pretty much done with the run anyway. They're going to live and die by the pass. It's going to be Dak Prescott to CeeDee Lamb. It's going to be Dak Prescott to Brandon Cooks and to Ferguson and to the rookie Flournoy and a few of the other guys. It's going to be Dak Prescott could be the first guy in almost 5 years to throw for 5,000 yards this year. I think it's going to be a crazy passing offense. So I don't think a running game is going to be really big. The passing game will be, as long as CeeDee Lamb decides to play. He's in a contract dispute right now. He wants to become the highest paid receiver in the NFL. And he's told the Cowboys front office that he's holding out until he gets that deal, meaning he wants to surpass Justin Jefferson as the highest paid receiver in the league. His numbers showed it last year, but if he doesn't play, the Cowboys are in trouble. And maybe that's his plan. Maybe they say, okay, we really need CD, pay him whatever he wants. We need him out there. It might work. But so we'll see. But I think it's going to be a really good offense, a really good passing offense. They're gonna set some numbers. They'll probably be the best offense in the NFL, passing wise. But I still don't think it's enough to get to the Super Bowl. So.
Yep. All right. So my question is all kind of along the similar vein that we've been discussing, is how much patience does Jerry Jones and the Cowboy fans have left for Dak Prescott? He's a good quarterback, but the expectations seem to be Super Bowl or bust. How bad of a season do the Cowboys have to have for them to let Dak? I don't know what my final words say.
Oh, sorry.
Let Dak go. All right, I could have guessed that. I guess.
What was Dak gonna do?
So our dad answered this one. He says, it's an odd situation, a great quarterback that gets you to the playoffs and then self-destruct each year. If they cut him loose, do they even make the playoffs? But as the question seems to indicate, what happens if they go 7-10 with Dak playing? I don't think they'd throw him away with 1 bad year, but they wouldn't keep him for 2 bad years. My response to that is, NFL fans, we don't really care what your regular season goes like. We care about the playoffs. And so the regular season's just fun football. Regular season, we have fun watching football. Fans care about the playoffs, especially Cowboy fans. And so if Cowboys don't make the playoffs, then we'll see a complete reset, in my opinion.
Well, also, I'll jump in there and say that whether or not I think that is right, he doesn't have 2 years. He has this year. He's playing on a final year. This is the year. He's playing out the final year of his contract, and so if he doesn't do well, he's going to be playing somewhere else next year. That's just a fact. And even if he does well, he may be playing somewhere else because Dak may not agree to whatever Jerry wants to pay. So.
Good. I think that's it for the Cowboys. Any other comments?
No, I think I agree with Scott, though, on this being kind of do or die for Dak and the head coach.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. It is my turn to talk about the New York Giants. So they had a great season 2 years ago. They got to the playoffs. They won a road playoff game. Last year was a disaster. They finished 30th in points, 29th in yards, 31st in passing yards. Defense wasn't any better in any of those categories. Oh, okay. Anyone else watching Hard Knocks? Because I'm talking about Hard Knocks a little bit because it's the New York Giants that are featured. Daniel Jones signed a massive extension last offseason, meaning the Giants are essentially stuck with him. He threw 2 touchdowns all of last season until 2 different injuries ended his year. So he was bad, no doubt about it. He didn't get any help. It's awkward watching Hard Knocks, I'll tell you that, because the front office is literally telling the camera, we're stuck with Daniel Jones. All we can do is build around him, and if it doesn't work, we're going to have to move on. They keep talking about how can we hide him, essentially. They're talking about a quarterback. How can we hide him? They also chronicle how hard they pushed in Hard Knock in the draft to trade up to get number 3 for Drake May. So quarterback confidence isn't very high right now. Giants lost Saquon Barkley in the offseason. It's also another awkward thing to watch in Hard Knocks because what they say, you can see the general manager talking to his staff and he's saying, we're going to let Saquon go test the free agent market because no one's going to pay him top dollar. He'll come back. Whoops. So they went out and grabbed Devin Singletary in the offseason, but he's not the same kind of caliber of back as Saquon. They draft Malik Neighbors in the 6th overall pick. He's a one-trick pony. He does a lot of really good things going deep, but doing anything else he didn't ever do in college. So Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson, Daniel Bellinger is stuck at tight end. This is your starting tight ends numbers because Darren Waller retired late in the offseason, forcing them to start him. This was the worst offensive line in the NFL. It isn't close. Andrew Thomas was the only good player on this line. He was hurt for almost half the year. If he's healthy, he's one of the better linemen. Evan Neal has had a lot of struggles to start his career. This is probably his last season as a starter, if he can't put it together. Jermaine Illuminor comes over. He's played guard most of his career, but he played right tackle for Las Vegas last year. He may play here if they don't have confidence with Evan Neal. John Runyon was signed to a pretty big deal to play either guard spots. John Michael Schmitz was a rookie last year at center. Dexter Lawrence is by far the best player on this roster. He plugs up the run game. He rushes the passer. He's really, really good. And they talked about that a lot in Hard Knocks. They wanted to get him the right people so he can play well and not be double teamed all the time. Enter Brian Burns. They went out and they signed him from the Panthers to rush opposite of Kayvon Thibodeau, who had 11.5 sacks himself, along with Dexter Lawrence. This is probably the best unit on the team at this point. The edge rushers, they have a lot of good players rushing off those edges. This is a struggle here. Deontay Banks had a pretty solid rookie year. He's now the number 1 cornerback. They bring over Trey Herndon from the Jaguars to be a kind of a 1-year rental. He's on a 1-year deal on the starting corner job. Jason Pinnock, Dane Belton were both solid at safety. Tyler Nubin was a 2nd-round pick who was widely considered the best safety in the draft. And so he's going to start from day 1 at a 3rd safety spot there. Rather than trade up for Drew Lock or re-sign Tyrod Taylor or whatever they tried to do at quarterback, instead they brought over Drew Lock from the Seahawks to potentially compete with Daniel Jones or take over if Jones really struggles. He had a big media day with the Giants, and so they have a lot of fanfare with him coming over. That still doesn't inspire any more confidence in Daniel Jones. Isaiah McKenzie is a good slot receiver, dangerous weapon in the return game. Tyrone Tracy is a 5th-round pick out of Purdue who shined as a receiver out of the backfield. So they have a couple of tight ends, including Theo Johnson, to try to make up for the loss of Darren Waller. Brought over Aaron Stinney as well, who was a starter for the Buccaneers at offensive guard. Big Jordan Phillips was out on the defensive line. Watch out for both Azeez Ojulari and Isaiah Simmons in the new defensive scheme. They could be big there. Matthew Adams is an all-pro special teamer on that side of the ball. And they added Jalen Mills at safety for the Patriots to kind of give them a veteran presence back there. Andrew Phillips was another corner, another defensive back they took in the 3rd round of the draft. He's very experienced in the SEC, and so they really like him. special teams, Graham Gano really struggled last year. How bad do you have to be on offense to only have 8 extra points? That's my question. So I think he was injured for part of the year, but that's bad. Brian Dable was the head coach. He coached the year 2 years ago. Last year, everything just fell apart completely. It was a pretty dramatic thing between him and former defensive coordinator Wink Martindale. They pretty much yelled all game, every game, each other on the sidelines. And Wink Martindale quit the last game of the season, walked out of the locker room without talking to anybody. So a lot of drama there. Shane Bowen is now the defensive coordinator, came over from the Titans. So let me quit out of here. Before I do you guys have any comments about these players on the Giants or this team that's obviously in major upheaval and major rebuilding mode?
It's going to be tough being a Giants fan coming up from what I just saw.
It's been tough for a while.
Facts.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, I'm going to stop share that screen and share the other one. There we go. Please scroll through the Giants here and get here. So Dad asked which version of Daniel Jones shows up this year. Last year, 2 years ago, somewhere in between. That's over to you, Dustin, for first analysis.
Yeah, I think, just like all of us would probably answer, is that most likely we're going to see last year's version. It's the problem last year was that the pressure was on Daniel Jones to try to win games. And this year, the pressure's even going to be more on him because they don't have very many other weapons. They lost running back. They lost Waller. They don't have the weapons. And so I don't see how anything is going to change where the pressure isn't on Jones to win the game. And he's just not quite there yet.
Yeah, and it's my turn, so I'll continue. I'm saying it could be even worse, if you believe that, because losing Saquon is a big deal, and replacing him with Devin Singletary is nowhere close to what Saquon does. So I think it could be even worse. I could see Drew Lock being replaced as starter halfway through the year because Daniel Jones is that ineffective. So anyway, my question was, we've seen the good. We saw them win a road playoff game, and we've seen the bad last year. And which version of the Giants will we see this year? Pam said she doesn't see as good as 2022, but probably thinks a little bit better than last year, somewhere in between. She said maybe a 7-win team. I struggle to find 7 games that they can win this year. I think I struggle to see 4. So I think they're going to struggle. Yancey.
Yeah, this team needs a lot for me to see them having success. What's the number one problem here, Cody?
I was like, for me personally, I mean, I said for me, but it's really everyone can see it. It's the QB position. It's nothing else but that. They have an okay defense. It needs more work, but the QB position is the most important one. And I also said Daniel Jones is not the answer. He had a great season 2 years ago, but it was an outlier. Daniel Jones will never be more than insurance, and that's just the truth. Unfortunate truth for him is that he needs to realize that he's going to be a backup for the rest of his career, and probably just accept that.
And it's unfortunate. I really like Brian Dable. I really like him as a head coach. And I don't know if he's going to survive another couple of years of this. I hope he does. I hope he finds some answers because I really, really like him.
Yeah, it's interesting just thinking offensively, what can they strategize? What kind of plays can they put together that makes it so the pressure isn't on Daniel Jones? You look at some of the best teams in the league. Let's even talk about the Chiefs. I would say, oh, Patrick Mahomes is so great, so great. And you look at him, 90% of the throws he makes are like 5 yards, 10 yards or less. They're easy throws
or something. Yeah.
Yeah, they're super easy throws. And then you put the pressure on these quarterbacks to make 20-yard throws trying to thread the needle and then say, oh, he's no good. It's all on the offense to try to design it the correct way.
I think just going off of that, if I had any thought or advice, and I'm not, take advice from me anyway, but would be to try to take a page out of of Kyle Shanahan's book. Trying to use a lot more of misdirection, reverse plays, things like that. Things that are happening in the backfield behind the court QB type things like that are taking a little bit of the heat and the pressure and the eyes off of Daniel Jones or off the QB, whoever is there. But the thing is that the Niners have people like Debo and George Kittle, and the Giants don't have anyone like that. But I mean, if you're going to go down in flames, better go down trying.
That was going to be my rebuttal, Cody. I mean, I'm a Kyle Shanahan fan, as a 49ers fan, and the system works for a reason, and that system it works because of the weapons that they have at their disposal. When you have Debo and Brandon Ayuk and Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle, you're going to be really good. I mean, Brock Purdy is always going to be considered is he or is he not a good quarterback? Because people say a monkey could get these guys the ball. But the thing with the Giants is they don't have those types of weapons. They don't have the guys like that can help that. They're trying to get them, but they don't have them right now.
The last one they had, they shipped off.
Yeah. So, okay. I'm going to stop sharing this one and share over here to we're going over to Yancey. Yancey, take it away with the Eagles.
Yeah, we had the 11-6, second in the NFC East for the Eagles. For me, this overall was and is going to be this year a team to beat. They were a team to beat last year. We just need to shore up some things like the secondary. We can go ahead. We can move on from this page. Let's go ahead and talk into the offense. Jalen Hurts. Yellow was MVP, yeah?
Pro Bowl.
Pro Bowl. Sorry about that. Played fairly well, 23 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, but balancing that out with 15 added rushing touchdowns and over 3,000 yards rushing or passing. Sorry. Let's move on. We're having Saquon join us from New York this year as an addition. AJ Brown played well last year. What's the pinkish purple against, guys?
This is all pro.
All pro. Okay, thank you. 7 touchdowns, 100 106 receptions, over 1,000 yards receiving for him. That's well supported by Devonta Smith and is that Goddard?
Dallas Goddard.
Goddard.
Dallas Goddard. And Paris Campbell is a new addition coming from New York as well. Let's go ahead. Supporting them on the line, protecting everybody is going to be Jordan Mailata.
Mailata.
Mailata, all right. 6'8", 365. That's a big guy. We got Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, and Lane Johnson there, as well as Tyler Steen. Looks like one start there, not a whole lot to look at. Hopefully that they'll get something out of him and he'll block well.
Yeah, let me jump in on this one because Jason Kelsey is gone, right? He retired. That's what creates this big hole. Cam Jurgens was a college center at Nebraska. He played right guard last year. He's moving back to his natural position, and they didn't sign anybody, and so they're just expecting Tyler Steen to jump in. He had one start all of last year to try and plug that hole. That's what that is right now.
Interesting move. Let's see how that works out. I do like putting a natural guy back into a position though over say a rookie or something like that. I do like that. Josh Sweat, we have him on the left end, right end over there, Bryce Huff. We have Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. The standouts here, I guess if you want to call them standouts, would have to be Sweat and Davis. But to be completely honest, brutally honest, I don't see anything special in those numbers. 43 tackles, 45 tackles, 6.5 sacks, 2.5 sacks. We got to pump those numbers up if you expect to go far into the playoffs. Let's move on to the secondary.
Yeah, I'd also jump in here real quick. They lose Hassan Reddick, who was their big sack leader. He went to the Jets, and they got a guy from the Jets. Bryce Huff had double-digit sacks last year for New York. I think he had 11 sacks for New York, and so he's the big addition there to try and replace
That's a plus. Did he finish high in over the 60s in tackles at least?
I don't know that number. I just know that he was
fair enough. That's a weird, yeah. But you're the right guy to ask weird numbers to. All right, moving on. So our linebacking core here, we have Devin White and Zach Braun, both of them additions, one coming from Tampa Bay, one coming from New Orleans. I don't know a lot about either one of these guys. I believe Braun is decent, but nothing really to phone home about, yeah?
Yeah, they both have their strengths that are different from each other. Devin White is a great pass rusher. He gets a lot of sacks. He's a great tackler, but he struggles in pass coverage. Zach Bond is the exact opposite.
Gotcha.
He's
I
very
remember
good.
in the notes you were talking about how they, as a linebacking core, they may support each other well. As a counterpoint to that, I could say that could really make you suffer because you need both guys to do both things well, or I'm going to pick on each side of the field independently. Let's check out the secondary. So Darius Slay seems that he played moderately well, 57 tackles, 2 interceptions, 1 touchdown. You don't really want your secondary getting a ton of tackles, you know? And that gold indicates Pro
Bowl, yeah.
Pro Bowl. Thank you. We have Reed Blankenship, 113 tackles, 3 interceptions. You don't want your safety having over 100 tackles and your linebackers having 50. I think that's kind of a distinct problem that we can point out with this defense. Quayon Mitchell is joining us as a rookie. A new addition from Detroit is going to be C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and James Bradbury played middle of the road, 54 tackles, 1 interception. I'd like to see more turnovers coming out of the secondary for this defense, as well as the supporting cast of the linebackers. Just all around more pressure from this defense to support the cast of superstars that you have on offense. Anybody have anything to add to these guys before we move on to special teams? Dustin, I saw you about to bite your lips off.
So Darius Slay has like the best nickname, Big Play Slay, you know, and he's great. He's fun to watch because he makes the big plays. So he's fun to watch. Big Play Slay.
He made 2 of them last year. 2 big plays.
Yeah,
he's Darius 2 big
out of those
Not
numbers.
just interceptions.
You can nickname yourself all you want, but you got to put numbers on the board.
This was the worst secondary in the NFL last year. So
it looks like it.
I think the only thing I want to add is actually C.J. Gardner-Johnson's coming back home. So he was in Philly before he went to Detroit. Now he's coming back. He's wherever he's gone, he's been great. So he's probably expected to be a great year again.
I agree.
Okay, so we got Kenny Pickett as a backup. Right, these are all backups and supports, right? Okay,
correct.
So I'm just going to kind of fly through these guys pretty quick. We got Kenny Pickett joining us from Pittsburgh. Kenneth Gainwell, Will Shipley, Anais Smith is a rookie coming out of the 5th round from A&M. It looks like Brenton Covey, is that his real name?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. I see Cody shout out.
Let's go.
We have Johnny Wilson coming from Florida State, another rookie. A lot of young guys here, which is good. That could help you out later. What's up with Scott? What do you got?
I was just going to point out Johnny Wilson's size as a receiver. He's 6'6", 240 almost. So he's huge.
That is a big guy.
And he ran a 4.540 in the draft. So
4.25?
4.5.
4.5. Okay. I was going to say, whoa, he's a freak of nature. Why is he not on the starter board? Okay, so we got Grant Caltera. Yeah?
Yeah. And we don't have to mention all of these guys.
Okay, gotcha. I don't see anybody really that I would shout out. Uzama is somebody that has played decent in the past that you would expect to play consistently for you, as well as Tupelo Patua or whatever, however you want to say him. Defensive tackle, you expect to see more out of him from what he did in college and USC. We can move on.
Well, real quick, if you don't mind, I just want to add. And I have to, because as a Ute fan, going back to Brenton Covey, I just got to mention this as well. But he was a star as a returner. He's doing really, really good. He's probably one of the best returners right now in the league. And with the new additions, the rule changes, I think Brenton Covey and just the Eagles in general is a team to look out for special teams and returns. It's going to be really exciting. So I'm excited to see what he can do.
I was going to call that out too, because 4 catches, 42 yards. It looks rough, but he was mainly a returner. He barely got on the field in offense. He's a return man. So.
flying through the defense here for the secondary players. We'll go through the second string players, rather. Brandon Graham, Patrick Johnson, Nolan Smith. Not going to try to say his first name, Dean. Julian Akawara from Notre Dame. We got Orwin Burks, Jeremiah Trotter. His dad played in the NFL, yeah? Okay.
For the Eagles, yeah.
For the Eagles, interesting. I was like, wait, that's familiar, but it's not 10 years ago. Where's he from? It also said rookie under him, so I just want to point that out. Jalix Hunt, interesting name there. Houston Christian rookie from the 3rd round. Kali Ringo. Man, all of these scrubs have incredibly hard names to say, man. Josh Jobe. We have Avante Maddox, Kobe DeJean, Tyler Hall, and Sidney Brown. I would say out of all the numbers that I see here, the only guy really deserving of a shout-out would be Sidney Brown, 45 tackles, 1 interception, 1 touchdown. Everybody else is either a rookie or didn't perform well enough for me to speak about it.
Yeah,
Nancy, it feels like we're in a Key and Peele skit, introducing the team.
Hey,
Tringleberry.
Look, I'm just trying not to get canceled out here. You know what I mean?
One thing I want to add, I'm sorry, just real quick.
No, go ahead.
Something I think that's interesting, and this has no significance really as far as race goes, but Cooper DeJean is actually, I believe, the only white cornerback in the NFL now at this point. So am I wrong? Okay.
There was Iowa seems to only have white guys, and they had a corner last year that was drafted by the Broncos, who's also white.
The Proud Boys can't wait to talk about this later. Kobe, there you go. I'll say his name so that way I'm on the right side of the fence.
Let me mention a couple of things. Jalix Hunt is a really intriguing player. He played safety in college. He's really fast for a defensive end, and so he's going to be interesting at linebacker there as well. Cooper Dijon, like the mustard is how you pronounce his name. He
looked like you said that, and Dustin had a seizure and fell really slow.
Cooper Dijon is the most versatile defensive back in the draft. He played every single position, and so those are things to watch out for. So,
Jake Elliott, what's the lavender for?
It's the All-Pro. He was probably the best kicker in the NFL last year.
Yeah, it looks like it. Only missing 1 extra point and 2 field goals. That's impressive. 44 punts, so not a lot of work for Brandon Mann, which you always like to see for your special teams as far as the punters go. Rick Lovato, 17 games, 3 tackles as a long snapper. Just going to mention that because his name is up there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Nick Sirianni, yeah. And then Vic Fangio, glad I didn't say that wrong. And Kellen Moore for the offensive coordinator coming from Dallas and LA, it looks like. And then, I think that's pretty much it. Fangio coming from Denver's head coach position to be a defensive coordinator now. I guess that's worth mentioning. And I think unless you guys have stuff to add, we'd move on to the questions.
Only thing I would add here, so they had, obviously, last year's offseason, both of their coordinators became head coaches in the NFL. And so Nick Sirianni hired 2 new coordinators, and they both struggled mightily. The defensive coordinator was fired halfway through the year, and so that didn't work. The offensive coordinator was Brian Johnson, and Cody, I got to give you one of these because he didn't do well. So he was fired at the end of the year, and this time they hired 2 very respected coaches who have been in their positions a long time. Kellen Moore was the Dallas offensive coordinator for 4 years, LA's last year. Vic Fangio has been a head coach in the league, and he's probably the most respected defensive coordinator in the league right now, maybe outside of Steve Spagnuolo.
Even if he does look like he works at Green Gods. For all you wizards out there.
Yep. Okay. Anything else? Okay. I'm going to stop sharing this one and share the other one.
Thanks for bearing with me. I had to pretend like I could read through all that. All right, let's start. I'll read Pam's question for Cody here, I guess. Yeah. Will the additions in the secondary be what the Eagles need to find themselves into the playoffs?
Yeah, my answer to that was just I think it was a glaring need for them, and it definitely helps to get back so much talent there. But the problem isn't getting to the playoffs. The problem is actually winning them, obviously, for the Eagles. And so they've been doing pretty well getting to the playoffs, but they need to get back to getting further into them.
Definitely agree. And then I guess I'll read mine on to Dustin, too. Can the Eagles keep Hurts from getting hurt this year? I feel like without him, they're very limited.
I'd agree that without him, they are limited, especially with the brotherly shove. They're just so good at that. And so it'll be interesting to see without Jason Kelce as well, how well they can do it. But I've always felt like staying healthy is a skill. It's something that some players are able to develop and staying healthy is a skill, especially the quarterback position, learning how to take a hit. Learn how to welcome that. And so I think that they got some training and some development for Hurts to do. And hopefully it's not they just throw the red jersey on him and say, okay, we're going to keep you healthy during practice. And then he doesn't know how to take a hit in the game. That's where you get hurt. So hopefully they can try to keep him healthy and teach him how to take a hit. And with him healthy and on the field, yeah, their offense can be great.
My inner John Madden just wants to agree with you and praise Brett Favre.
No kidding. My question was based on Nick Sirianni. It seemed like he was very at risk of being fired after last season's complete collapse near the end of the season. And he threw the kitchen sink at the offseason, firing both of his coordinators, hiring big names and bringing in a bunch of talent, Saquon Barkley included, all presumably to save his job. So my question to Dad was, what does he have to do this season to still be coaching in Philly next year?
Yeah, and Marv's answer to that was he's got to win at least one playoff game. Anything less than that would be considered a failure, and he'd probably be gone. And I think I agree with that.
Yeah, the way that the Eagles finished the season last year was sad. It was last season, right, where they lost the last 3 or 4 games and then forgot how to play football in the wild card round.
Yeah, they I think they had only lost one game through November, and then they only won one game the rest of the season. So yeah, it was bad. Okay, let me stop sharing this one and share for Cody here on the Washington Commanders.
All right. Yeah. So we have the 4-13 Commanders from last year. They only won 4 games. They were definitely the worst, one of the worst, if not the worst teams in the league. 4th in the NFC East. You can tell that 32nd, 25th, 24th. I mean, they were horrible in everything that they were doing. So they just needed a lot of help.
32nd is the worst in the league, by the way. And then
that's
the
what
very
I'm
last.
saying. Yeah.
So yeah.
So moving on to Jaden Daniels. So they obviously, because they're high, they're one of the worst teams. They got a high draft pick. They decided to take Jaden Daniels. He's a Heisman winner, and that's kind of, at least for me, a question mark though as well. He's 6'4", 210. He's just kind of a little stick, but he's fast. He's got a big arm. He's obviously good, but the question is, can college carry on to NFL? And that's really the question mark for him. So. Moving on, we have
6'4" is little.
That's what I was laughing at with
That's
Dustin's
the
reaction.
tiniest thing that's ever lived. I'm
6'4", 210.
We're talking about this way, not this way. This way. We're talking about a little stick who can be broken in half by someone like T.J. Watt. So
yeah, 210's light, bro. Let's keep. Hey, I promote that narrative, dog. I'm with you. Go Lizzo. Sorry, out of bounds.
We just bring Lizzo in during a. Okay, all right.
No, don't get me started, bro. Look, Dustin had to mute.
All right, going to the offensive weapons for them. I do like the offensive weapons here personally. Austin Eckler is a pretty good addition. He's a touchdown machine. I think, and you may need to correct me here if I'm wrong, but I think he was kind of a cheaper option for them as well. But I think that's a great addition for them. I like Brian Robinson. He's great as well. He didn't have a great year. He can do a lot better, but Terry McLaurin is definitely the best player on this team, not just on the offense, but the best player on this team. So he's doing 1,000-yard seasons without a quarterback. So basically, now we get the Heisman winner. We'll see if he can play football in the NFL. We'll see if he can get Terry's numbers up. I really like Jahan Dotson as well. Zach Ertz is a great addition. The offensive line, I personally, I don't know a lot of these names very well. I know Andrew Wiley is doing pretty well. Other than that, they have a couple of additions, but I don't know these names very well off the top of my head. So I might leave this up to anyone else if they have any thoughts on this team.
Let me say this, that you would be fine if Sam Cosmi was your worst offensive lineman. Like that would be wonderful. Unfortunately, he's their best offensive lineman. So he's the only starting worthy guy on this line, other than maybe Tyler Biotish, who came. Andrew Wiley was a swing offensive lineman in Kansas City. He's a starter. Nick Allegretti was from Kansas City. He barely got on the field last year, and now he's the starting left guard. And
6'8" Cornelius didn't get bullied good enough to block well. What do you mean?
Yeah, and he's a swing offensive lineman that now they don't have a better option, so he's the starter. So it's a problem area.
Moving to the defensive side of the ball, we've got Jonathan Allen who's doing really well as well. Got 5.5 sacks, 53 tackles. Darren Payne, Dante Fowler, and Dorrance Armstrong coming over both from Dallas, so they're staying in within their division, and we'll hopefully be able to add some good rushing defense there.
And coming over with their former defensive coordinator, Dan Quinn.
That's true. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, and we'll get to Dan Quinn as well here in a little bit.
Yeah.
So we got Jamin Davis. Let's start with him first. So I've liked him ever since he came into the draft. He's doing well. He can do a lot better. But the big news here is the addition of Bobby Wagner, who still has it, I think, at 36 or something like that. I think he's maybe 35. I'm not sure. He's up there. He's in the mid-30s, but he still has it. Comes over from Seattle. He's the All-Pro, and they're glad to have him. And then the secondary, we got I really like Emmanuel Forbes. He can do a lot better, though, but I've liked him since he came in as well. Jeremy Chin, good addition from Carolina. Other than that, I just know the names of these people. Benjamin St. Just, he's got a sack, and always whenever there's a sack with a secondary, that's pretty exciting and fun to watch. But other than that, Scott or anyone else, you have anything to add with the rest of the secondary?
Just Mike Sainristil. He was a top corner in the draft that fell to the second round into the lap. He was supposed to be a first-round pick and somehow fell into the second round. So
they got a steal there then. Okay. Let's go into our backups here. They got veteran Marcus Mariota to help back up Jaden Daniels if he's having some struggles in his rookie year. I know, Dustin, you've said before that you always feel like the best time for a rookie to start is the next year, and so that might be helpful for them to have Mariota helping out with that. Luke McCaffrey, you guys obviously should recognize that name. He's brother of Christian and the son of Ed. Has a lot of good talent in him, so it'll be kind of exciting to see what he can do for them as well. Jamison Crowder is there, probably more as a return specialist, I think. Is probably what he's going to be doing there more for. Didn't realize Chris Paul started playing football, but no, I'm kidding.
And grew 4 inches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gained 200
Times
pounds.
3.
And gained 200 pounds. Yeah.
CP times 3.
That's the main thing. So other than that, I don't know if I have much more to add about that. So if anyone else has anything to add with this backup unit on offense.
CP3O line. One more? I got one more.
The only thing I'd add is Brandon Coleman. Based on how bad that offensive line could be, he could start from day one, 3rd-round pick out of TCU.
What? So what stops Mariota from being the starter?
They want to see what they have in the second overall pick. Yeah, Jaden Daniels, second overall pick.
Do they
Heisman
want to
winner.
break his legs before he could start his career? Is what you?
That's
It's
Sorry.
it's one of those things where when you're a first or second overall pick, you're probably starting. Marcus Mariota is a tutor, is supposed to hold a clipboard and teach Jaden Daniels how to play the game.
Fair enough.
And I kind of agree. I don't think management's going to be very happy if you use a first or second overall pick and not play them. Anyway, one of the backups for defense in this that's small. Javonte Jean-Baptiste, rookie 7th-round pick. I know the name, but I don't know much about him, so we'll move on. Jajon Newton, I know he was looking really good. He's a good defensive tackle. I think he's from Illinois. Yeah, Illinois.
Defensive Player of the Year in the Big 12.
Yeah, so he's going to be exciting to watch.
Big 10, sorry.
And then let's see here. We have I don't recognize almost anyone else in this, so that's not a good sign that their backup don't have any big names or anything. I think I recognize John Ridgway, but other than that, any thoughts from you, Scott, or anyone else?
Frankie Louvu is a good player from Carolina. He was a big starter last year. He could play a lot there. Michael Davis has been a starter in LA for the last 3 or 4 years, and so he could start on the defensive on the secondary as well. Other than those two, I don't have anything to add.
Oh. All right, moving on to special teams. We've got a new addition from the Canadian Football League. So glad to have him come in. Ramiz Ahmed. Tress Way being the punter, 73 punts. That's not a good number. You need to be cutting those punts down. And then Tyler Ott from Baltimore. I know that he's a great long snapper.
This was not their first choice at kicker, by the way. They brought over Brandon McManus in the offseason, and he promptly beat the crap out of his girlfriend. And so he was arrested for domestic violence and cut from the Commanders, and they had to scramble to sign someone else. So.
That's what happens when you're tired of being a kicker and you want to be a puncher. Sorry, I'm done. No more. No more. That's the last one.
All right, we'll get to the coaching here now. So Dan Quinn, obviously the headline here, coming over from Dallas, which is, again, we talked about this, why some of those defensive players from Dallas came over. He had the stint as a head coach with Atlanta, taking them to the Super Bowl. We all know the whole 28-3 thing, but the fact that he's able to take them to the Super Bowl is in and of itself amazing. So he's a great defensive mind, and I expect that the Washington defense will probably be really good with him as head coach. And then hiring Joe Witt as defensive coordinator. Cliff Kingsbury is a great offensive mind. I feel like and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like he came from the Shanahan tree. For some reason I was thinking he did. I think he worked with Mahomes though back at Texas Tech.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So he has some experience there with obviously the MVP of the game right now. So I think that's a really good hire as well. So they have the talent and the potential at coaching.
Anything from anyone else here before we go over to the document?
I think we might cover this in some of the questions, but this was a huge ownership change recently. It was. This ownership was terribly toxic and was rated as the absolute worst in the league, and it wasn't close. And so now new ownership come in, you see new coaches and you see the players that have come over. It feels like they really make an investment in culture. And, especially with players following Dan Quinn over, it feels like there's a good cultural shift here that they're trying to happen. And so I'm kind of rooting for the Commanders here to be a good positive influence in the league.
Yeah. Daniel Snyder, so many investigations into him right now as the former owner of the Commanders, sexual, what is it called? Sexual, what's the second word? Harassment, sorry. Sexual harassment in the workplace and a bunch of other things like that that was not a good place to be. So, yeah. Okay, let's scroll through the Commanders and get to the questions. Here we go.
All right, we'll start with Dustin. Take it away, Dustin.
Yep. So totally new team, top to bottom. Mentioned that a little bit, that especially coaches, but totally new team. What measures can you use to predict an outcome for this team, Scott?
Yeah, and obviously every team wants to win a Super Bowl, but some teams have different measures of success. There's no way the Commanders realistically expect to compete for Super Bowl this season. So that's not their goal. Their goal is going to be different. They want to see progress and optimism heading into next season. They want to see that Jaden Daniels can be the franchise quarterback. They want to see that their offensive weapons can make a difference and that defense can be a top 10 unit. If they go 500 or better, that's just a cherry on top. That'd be great. But that's not really the goal. The goal is seeing that they're heading in the right direction.
Perfect. The next question. So my dad said, can they manage to stay out of the cellar in the NFC East? What will it take for them to at least finish third in their division, Yancey?
No, a real team name, check. I guess they went from football team to Commanders. They got that part.
They did.
But then some much better talent on both sides of the football, and then we can talk. But since they don't have talent on either side of the football for the most part, I stand firm on my no.
All right, we'll go right into my question, which was, should the NFL be on notice when it comes to Washington's defense? What is the ceiling for the defense? And Pam said, I expect Washington to have a pretty solid defense, but I don't expect much more after that. I think that the defense will help them win more than 4 games, but they won't be competing for the division. They for sure aren't beating the Cowboys in defensive talent. And I think I would agree with that.
I'm going to scroll down all the way down here and see if I can find this. Okay. All right. This is how we pick the division. It's fairly consistent, except for when we get to Pam here in a second, and Yancey too. So all of us had either the Cowboys or the Eagles in the top spot. I think that's pretty solid. We don't have to debate which one is going to finish number 1. We know one of them is going to finish number 1, right? So they're both pretty much at the top. Then Pam had the Commanders in second. She expects a pretty good season from them. And Yancey, you had the Giants finishing in second. Can we talk?
Yeah. I got you. So I think the Cowboys suck. I don't put any, I don't get it. I understand that people like them. I'm not one of those people. I like to take a look at reality every once in a while. Not all the time, but sometimes. And I think realistically, the Cowboys suck. And I think that New York will end up surprising you guys at the end of the year by winning just a couple more games. I don't think New York is good, but I think that Washington and Dallas are just so awful that I'm okay with those picks.
Let me remind you again that they're 36-15 in the last, I think, 4 years. So they don't suck. They just suck in the postseason.
I would agree with Cody here that the Cowboys are an excellent regular season team. They're just a bad postseason team.
Well, that's changing this year, baby. They're going to suck all year and just show you guys what they are.
Let's see. And we all had either the Giants or Commanders in the very bottom. Cody and I had the same 3 and 4. We both expect the Commanders to be a little bit better than the Giants. I expect if last year was an unmitigated disaster for the Giants, this year is a total state of Colorado right now. Fire. So
yeah, I think I think Commanders, realistically, I think they should probably win about 6 games this year. So I think they'll be 6 or 7, but that's what I think for them.
Anything else from Dustin? You're kind of the one that's kept the most consistent here, but any thoughts?
I would say there's a difference between the level of suckage for the Cowboys and for the Giants and the Commanders. There's tiers.
I get it.
Tiers of suckage.
Hey man, I just look, as much as I like the Colts, I hate the Cowboys. So that might be a fair thing to put in there.
Okay. Let's stop share here and open share this one. We're starting back with Yancey on the Denver Broncos in the AFC West.
All right. Heavy heart with this one. So I like the Broncos, but they sucked. We just have to be honest about it. Last year, an 8-9 record, just good enough to get into the third place in the AFC or West. Sorry, 27th overall, 29th overall, 32nd. So worst in rushing, basically on yards per carry, and then 30th in defensive rushing. So they can't run the ball, but you can run the ball on their defense. Bet that's fun in practice. Moving on.
Close your eyes, Yancey.
Yeah, I know, right? So Zach Wilson from BYU. Sorry, guys. I don't know why we ended up with this dude as our quarterback. Oh, yeah, I do. We wasted a ton of money on Wilson, and then we were stuck having to scramble and get this guy coming from New York. Moving on.
Let me fill in just a second here. The Broncos felt so certain that they didn't want Russell Wilson on their team. They're paying him $85 million over the next 2 years to not play for them.
Yeah, let me get that job. I will not throw a football. I promise you, I will not throw a football for the next 2 years in Denver if you give me $85 million.
I ain't playing for them either. Where's my check?
I won't touch one for the next decade if you give me half of that.
Yeah.
All right. Supporting cast, if you can call them that. Javonte Williams, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, Troy Franklin, a new addition, 4th-round rookie. Draft pick that we got there, Adam Trotman. Really, I don't see enough from anybody here. 59 receptions, 772 yards, 10 touchdowns is okay from Sutton, but it's truly not enough. We didn't have anybody getting him the ball. Tim Patrick being injured, not playing, we didn't get to see anything from him. Any Utah fans want to talk about how good he is?
He was really good. But he hasn't played for 2 years. He's been injured in both years, both last 2 years. So, but and Cortland Sutton just signed a huge deal to stay with the Broncos. So,
I want to get a 1,000-yard season out of him.
And I just want to say Troy Franklin was electric to watch. I feel like 4th round was a drop for him. I feel like he was really good. So
I agree.
Yeah.
I think he was projected to go in the 2nd round, and he fell all the way to the 4th. So it's a big
Oregon had a really good system, right? And that's where he's coming out of.
Yeah.
So we can expect to see nice things out of him, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Garrett Bowles looks like a lesbian that drives a semi for a living. Ben Powers, Alex Forsyth. That wasn't even supposed to be that funny. I'm sorry. Quinn Menares, but you guys know it's true. Quinn Menares, Mike McGilchie, I guess. So we had a did not play practice squad. Is that from injury or what for the center?
He was a draft pick last year, essentially redshirted.
Gotcha.
They lose their Lloyd Cushenberry to the Titans, and so rather than trade for anyone, they're essentially they like what they have in Alex Forsyth. He didn't play at all last year, redshirted, essentially a rookie. So
gotcha. Yeah, I don't really see it. It's hard with the offensive line. None of them get shout outs unless you make the Pro Bowl or something like that. It's really hard to know which of these guys are great and which guys aren't, unless you got like Scott, who knows all the stuff about all these guys. I really don't know too much. I'm assuming 6'8" from Notre Dame. They can expect him to be pretty good.
Yeah, let me, Cody, you go ahead first.
Sorry. Yeah, I'll say one thing. It's probably not what you're going to say, but your lesbian who drives truck, Garrett Bowles, he is really good. He, other than being from Utah as well, but he's been, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, he's been a Pro Bowler 4 or 5 times or something like that, maybe more than that.
Just once. One Pro Bowl. Mm-hmm. 2 years ago, he was a Pro Bowler.
Okay, never mind.
But he is the best lineman on that team. Yeah, he is the best offensive lineman.
Just to clear that up, he is not my lesbian.
Mike McGlinchey came from San Francisco, and so he had a pretty good season, but he was a good pickup last year.
Nice. John Franklin Myers, DJ Jones, and Zach Allen. New addition from the Jets. I don't know what his numbers look like. Physically, expect that's about right for the defensive line. Size wise, DJ Jones, 46 tackles, 2 sacks, 60 tackles, 5 sacks coming out of Zach Allen. It's decent. I'd like to see more pressure on the quarterback out of my defensive line.
Yeah, Franklin Myers had good numbers coming off the edge in New York. They paid Zach Allen a fortune last year. You probably want double that. You want 10
Right.
sacks.
That's in my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay, Alex Singleton, Cody Barton, and Jonathan Cooper. The standout here, obviously, Singleton, 177 tackles, 2 sacks, but still not. I mean, I might be kind of a snob for numbers, but those I need more sacks out of my defense. Those are great tackle numbers, but I need more pressure and turnovers to have an effective offense. Not sure what Barton did in Washington, if he was good or not. But he was in Washington, so probably not a lot to talk about. Jonathan Cooper, 72 tackles, 8.5 sacks, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. That's more akin to what I would like to see out of the defensive numbers.
Yeah, Cooper was your sack leader. Singleton was number 2 in the NFL in tackles. And Barton, he's a step down. They had Josie Jewell last year. He went to a different team. Barton is a step down. He's okay, but he's not going to be a Pro Bowl or All-Pro guy. So
Nailed it. Patrick Surtain usually plays fairly well. What the lavender? I've been told what it means.
All-Pro.
All-Pro. Thank you. From Alabama. But when he went to college, 69 tackles, 1 interception. I would like to see those turnover numbers come up from him because he is capable of it. We just didn't see it a whole lot last year, I'm assuming. Coming from Miami, we have Brandon Jones, Jaquan McQuillan, 51 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 interceptions. PJ, I'm sorry, I can't get over the Jaquan McKellen. That's like an actual Key and Peele name, so I'm just dying inside. PJ Locke out of Texas, 53 tackles, 3 sacks, 1 interception. Again, I'd like to see more pressure or more turnovers coming out of my defense. Levi Wallace joining from Pittsburgh via Alabama, it looks like. Don't know a whole lot about Levi Wallace. Scott, if you could cover me a little bit here.
Yeah, Levi Wallace is a good cover corner. He's not going to make a whole lot of big interceptions, but he's going to lock down receivers pretty well. The big thing I'd call out here is you're missing Justin Simmons, who was an All-Pro for the Broncos last year. He was cut. Blame Russell Wilson. They couldn't afford him anymore because they're paying Russell Wilson money to not play for him. So
we could do a whole other 20 minutes on the things I blame Russell Wilson for. We got to get through these guys. Bo Nix coming out of Oregon. Hopefully we'll see a bright future coming out of him. Samajay Perine, it looks like. Not a lot of numbers that I can see. Jaleel McLaughlin, Audric Estime, Michael Burton, Marvin Sims. Both of them looking like were those Pro Bowlers? All pro. Sorry. All pro players there. No real exciting numbers jumping at him. Anything. I will say Nick Gargirio looks like he'll bury your grandma later on in life. Not sure if he has a thing set up where he's going to work at a mortuary, but he certainly has the face for it. Nobody else there that I really see that I would mention based on numbers, but I will say their names. Brandon Johnson, we got Josh Reynolds, Devon Valet, Beal, I don't know, not sure. Take your pick. Lucas Kroll, Greg Deluche, Quinn Bailey, and Matt Perk.
The only thing I'd add, Bo Nix, obviously, will probably start at some point this year. Zach Wilson's probably not finishing the year at quarterback. Audric Estime, just watch out. Don't be surprised if he's the best running back to come out of this draft. So.
We got Sam Mustipher, Matt Henningsen, Elijah Garcia, Angelo Blackson, Malcolm Roach, Nick Benito, Baron Browning, Drew Sanders, Jonah Elias, Chris Abrams-Dryen, Riley Moss, Trayman Smith, Damari Mathis, and Delirian Turner-Yell.
Yeah. What two things I'll mention? Jonah Ellis is a third round pick out of Utah. He's a really good player in college for the Utes. He'll get on that edge rusher pretty quick. Riley Moss is your other white corner, by the way, Cody, out of Iowa.
Okay.
So, okay.
Will Lutz looks like 30 for 34 on field goals, 29 out of 21 on extra points. Not terrible, but not great. 79 punts for Riley Dixon, averaging 46.3 yards. That's decent. You can't ask for much more than that. Mitchell Fraboni, that's a cool name. Looks like our long snapper there. Returning Sean Payton. We have Vance Joseph and Joe Lombardi coming from LA, right?
Yeah, they're all returning for their second years.
Gotcha.
There's no
Gotcha.
additions on that coaching staff. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna move over to this one. Oops, we're back in this one. I have to find it. Please excuse me. How close did I get? Pretty close. Okay. Scroll down to the questions. Here we go.
All right. Starting off, this will be for you, Cody. Will the Walmart team be more patient or less patient than previous front offices with the win-loss or coach or quarterback play this year?
Context, obviously the new owners this year are the heirs of the Walmart fortune. So that's why they're the Walmart team. So.
All right. My answer to that is just I think the Broncos are very impatient right now. They've been waiting to have a good production since Manning left, which was obviously, I think, 2015, 2016, somewhere around there. And still haven't found it. I think anyone in any leadership position has a short leash right now, so don't mess up.
Dustin.
Yeah, so we looked at this offense, and like Yancey said, there's not a lot of names there. Offense is a glaring hole. What can the defense do to help them win games?
Yeah, I mean, this is a thing that I see as a problem coming up as a Broncos fan, is that they need to create more turnovers and hope that the secondary can do better in slowing down the passing game. Again, a whole lot of no names, and they did not perform well last year. So unless they create more turnovers and get the offense more opportunities to play well, we're going to continue to see a decline. And then reading for Pam for Scott, do we have any expectation to see Zach Wilson on the field this year? If so, what should we expect with him being under new coaching and new leadership?
Yeah. So the Broncos have announced that they have a three-way race for quarterback. It's between Zach Wilson, Bo Nix, and Jarrett Stidham. I expect Zach Wilson to begin the season as the number one quarterback on this team. He has the starting experience, even though it wasn't good starting experience, he has it. And I think Sean Payton treasures that. And Sean Payton loved Zach Wilson coming out of BYU. There was a lot of stuff about how he wanted to draft Zach Wilson out of BYU. And so I think he wants to help turn around Zach Wilson's career if he can. But he'll have a very short leash. Obviously, they draft Bo Nix with the 12th overall pick, and they want to see what they have. And so I expect Bo Nix to take over at some point. Okay, stop sharing this one and go over to Dustin.
Yeah, Kansas City Chiefs, Super Bowl champions. I think the biggest thing for me was entering the playoffs. I was like, okay, great. That was a decent season. They're going to lose the playoff game and be done because they just had a rough season. They made it to the playoffs, but they did not look good doing it. And then they went on an absolute tear all throughout the playoffs and then won the Super Bowl. And it was super exciting. Everybody was happy, me most of all. But the biggest opportunity is that they could go for a three-peat, which has never been done before. And that's what they're aiming for, is the three-peat. Patrick Mahomes, right? One of the greatest quarterbacks of this generation. While he had kind of, like I said, like a rough offense with 14 interceptions, he knows how to make magic, especially when it counts. Um, Moving on to the talent here. I don't know if you could call what they had last year receivers, probably more like disappointments.
Droppers.
Yeah, droppers, disappointments, whatever you want to say. They did not have good talent there in the receiver position, and looking at the receivers now, they still don't have great talent. Marquise Brown is kind of the big name there, but it's still not there. Travis Kelce, though, is, arguably one of the best players in the league. Super exciting to watch. And he's just one of those guys you want him to touch the ball as much as possible. This was one of, I think, his first season in, 4 or 5 seasons not hitting 1,000 yards. 7, 8.
He finished 16 yards short of 8 straight 1,000-yard seasons. Yeah.
So it's absolutely fantastic. I want to read a note here. So they drafted Xavier Worthy out of Texas. Worthy set an all-time record with the fastest ever 40-yard dash at the combine at 4.21 seconds. If I tried to run a 40-yard dash, I would die in 4.21 seconds.
Yeah, that's insanely fast. Yeah.
All right, moving on to the offensive line. The offensive line has been one of the great strengths. I mean, the Chiefs do so much in between the offensive line and the quarterback. They have so many plays that happen right there in between the tackles, and so having a strong offensive line is great. Obviously, got a couple of all pros there, and they're excited to be there. However, they do have a rookie there on the left side in the blind spot. So it'll be interesting to see what is his name, Kingsley Samatea, can do as a rookie. Obviously, second round rookie there, and so there's some learning that needs to be done there.
The only thing I would mention, they have a really good interior. These 2 tackles kind of like Juwan Taylor led the league in offensive line penalties last year. And so they have a rough kind of right tackle. He's good when he doesn't commit penalties, but he commits them a lot. So.
Chris Jones is one of the best players in the league. He got a new contract. He'll be there for a while, and really just surround other players with Chris Jones, and you're going to have a great defensive line. Then looking at your linebackers, Drew Tranquil is someone that stood out last season. Did good, 78 tackles, 4.5 sacks, but that strength still is in the defensive line, not necessarily in the linebackers. And then looking at the secondary, Trent McDuffie was all pro, and Justin Reed is someone that has made a name for himself, having 95 tackles there, but they lost Snead, who was their big star there.
And they don't have anyone. Jalen Watson replacing him. That's a big hole.
Yeah. So this defense, we'll talk about coaching later, but this defense has one of the greatest defensive minds behind it, and so it's all about being able to fill the holes that are missing, that aren't there. Brought in Carson Wentz as a backup, maybe get some training there. He'll be really good. Making sure that the wheelchairs stay on the ground. And then you got a few other names here. I'll mention Sky Moore, who had a lot of expectations last season, didn't get to prove too much. And then Kadarius Toney is back again. I believe it was him that caught the final touchdown, if I remember right, that won the Super Bowl.
He looks like a drill rapper with that shiesty on.
Defensive depth here. No significant names, but we do have several rookies there, especially late round picks though. And so there's an opportunity to just grow and develop. And so again, one of those glaring holes that we talked about, if the depth has to play a lot on the field, there's some potential for the defense, especially to to have some holes in it and to let a lot of yards and points go. And so it'll be up to Spagnuolo to try to get that going.
Yeah, watch for Kamal Haddam to win that starting cornerback job, actually, in camp. 6th round pick.
Good. So, special teams. Harrison Butker is automatic. Missed a few field goals, but he's if you play fantasy football, he's the guy you want on your team with so many field goals and extra points. And they got a new addition, Matt Ariaza, as a punter, and then long snapper James Winchester.
I just want to make a real quick thought there. I'm glad that Matt Ariaza was able to come back to the league and get a second chance. I'm not sure you guys were aware, but he was falsely accused of a serious sexual assault allegation, which really derailed and just completely threw away his career. So once that was all proved to be false in court, the Chiefs were able to offer him a second chance, which I was really proud to hear about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, Andy Reid. Andy Reid has a spot in Canton. They dust it every week. It's ready and waiting for him anytime that he wants to retire. He's got an open spot there. He is clearly one of the most innovative and creative minds to ever wear the headset. And so to have him back, continue to design plays, especially around the talented offensive core that they have. And then we talked about Steve Spagnuolo with that great defensive thing, but he also has work cut out for him this season, more so than previous years. And then Matt Nagy as the offensive coordinator in just his second season, with last year being kind of a struggle. It's an opportunity to try to build off of that.
You think he ever calls his wife Miss Nagy?
Whoops, wrong one again. Sorry. Only if he wants to sleep on the couch that night.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Chiefs questions. Starting with me, it looks like. My question, sorry, Dustin. My question was, would a three-peat solidify this Chiefs team as the greatest team of all time in the NFL, if they get to that point? And Pam.
That's me.
So
yeah, Pam answers, this would be the first time any team has ever done that. So yes, winning the Super Bowl is really hard to do. To win it 3 times in a row, that's an entirely different level. I would agree with that. It would definitely cement them in history books forever. And they're already a dynasty comparable to the dynasties that people name off.
So my question is, while the offense on this team is extremely dangerous, the defense is equally dangerous. What should opposing offensive coordinators specifically do to beat this lethal defense and outsmart Spagnuolo?
And a great question. My answer is the strength of the Chiefs is rhythm. If you can disrupt rhythm with long drives or quick scores, it's like another defensive weapon. Also, don't try to match the fancy moves of the Chiefs offense. You're just as likely to get yourself up. As a good book suggests, don't panic and don't forget your towel, which is The Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy, by the way. So, and I just to kind of summarize that up, it sometimes they get caught up of like, oh, the Chiefs are so fancy, I've got to do the fancy stuff in order to beat them, and you don't. You got to try to have long drives, quick scores, in order to take the defense of the Chiefs. And they may have more opportunity this year than previous years, but it's all about trying to disrupt the offensive rhythm by having a good offense yourself.
if I could provide just a brief bit of analysis that I saw last year, like the Chiefs offense had been just throw bombs, right, to Tyreek Hill and to MVS and to all these other guys, and it didn't work last year because teams started understanding how to play that defensively. They put like 2 guys, safeties deep back and shell on the offense. It really threw off Mahomes and that offense. And in my opinion, the Chiefs didn't. They just are trying to bang their heads against the wall because they brought in Xavier Worthy to do the same exact thing. And so in my mind, it's going to be the same kind of struggle this year on offense because they're not addressing the need to adjust on offense to what the defense is doing. But that's just a thought.
I think a good adjustment for that, just to tack on to what you said, would be using Pacheco with a little bit more jet sweep style, extra. How do I describe it? Extended run plays via the short pass. Because as Dustin was talking about earlier, that's Mahomes' bread and butter, is throwing a 5-yard out and then running it again. I think if you get those jet sweep style plays moving into the offense a little bit more often, you'll catch guys off guard with that incredible speed that they have in positions other than wide receiver. And then the Chiefs need more of the same for the most part. What is one thing you would change if you had to?
Answer here from our dad. They often needed one more reliable offensive option last year. They'll need even more this year to get back to the Super Bowl. I think that's great analysis, is that, it was try to just get it to Kelsey. And Nancy, you provided great analysis on getting Pacheco more sweeps, and just what they can do is they need to find at least one more offensive option. Hopefully they do.
Okay, 2 more teams. Let's see how quickly we can hit them. Starting with the Las Vegas Raiders. They finished 8-9, tied with the Broncos, but technically finished second because they were a little bit better than the Broncos. They won those games. Aiden O'Connell returns. The Raiders did a lot of things to try and figure out, okay, can we trade for this guy? Can we draft this guy? None of that worked. So Aiden O'Connell is back as the starting quarterback. He did enough last year to try to earn another year. 12 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, just okay for a rookie. So try to get a little bit better. Josh Jacobs is gone. They struggled running the ball last year, and so he was an expensive option that they really liked what Zamir White did at the end of the season. Most of those 451 yards came the final 3 games of the year. So he was really, really good for the last 3 games. He's the starter now. You have a couple of really good options. Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, really good receivers. They drafted Michael Mayer in the first round last year. They draft Brock Bowers in the first round this year. 2 high drafted tight ends that'll help that offense a lot. Offensive line, Colton Miller is the best of this bunch at left tackle. He's huge, 6'9", 325 pounds. He's a big dude. Dylan Parham, Andre James return. Thayer Munford trying to return a right tackle. Jackson Powers Johnson won the Remington Award last year for the nation's best center. But the Raiders have already had a center. They still drafted him, and now they're going to have him play guard. Is it the best thing in the world to draft the best center and have him play guard? I don't know. We'll see. Christian Wilkins was the biggest addition on this team. He's been really good for the last few years, so he'll wreak havoc alongside Max Crosby, whose motor literally never stops. 14.5 sacks last year. Probably he's in the conversation for the best defensive lineman in the league, along with Nick Bosa and Micah Parsons and Myles Garrett. It's kind of those 4 that are the top. Divine Deablo, Robert Spillane, both really good last year, both over 100 tackles. Jacorian Bennett. This is a sad secondary here. Nate Hobbs is the best player. Trayvon Morrig was pretty good. Jack Jones came over in the trade deadline and had 2 pick sixes, and so they're starting him again. Jacorian Bennett and Marcus Epps are there as well. Gardner Minshew comes over as the possible replacement if Aiden O'Connell struggles. He was a Pro Bowler last year, taking over for Anthony Richardson and leading them to almost to the playoffs. Dylan Laube is a kick returner out of New Hampshire, FCS All-American last year. Alexander Madison struggled in Minnesota as number 1 back. He's now going to be like a rotational one. Jalen Guyton comes over, wide receiver. Cody Whitehair and Andrews Pete were starters in Chicago and New Orleans, and now they may start, they may come off the bench, but there's options there at offensive line.
More like Cody Whitehair.
Would you? Nice. Malcolm Kuntz is another good option at defensive line. He'll come in on that rotation. Trey Taylor might be the biggest steal of the draft. 7th round pick out of Air Force. A lot of teams may not know that he won the Jim Thorpe Award as the nation's best defensive back last year in college football, and somehow lasted until the 7th round. Maybe because he came out of Air Force, but he was the best defensive back in college football last year. So watch out for AJ Cole, the best punter maybe in the league, 50.4 yards per kick. Daniel Carlson was perfect on extra points and missed 4 field goals. Antonio Pierce took over as head coach about halfway through the season, and he led them to a winning record the rest of the way. I think if the Raiders would have found someone else, that whole locker room would have revolted because they love what Antonio Pierce is bringing to that team. Former linebacker, great player. He brings something different to that organization. So I'm really happy, and the Raiders are really happy that he's the new head coach for sure. Anyone want to say anything about the Raiders?
I just agree with you on Antonio Pierce. That was the obvious hire, in my opinion, and they made the right choice finally.
Yeah, their big win was beating the Chiefs in Kansas City in week 14 or 15, I think. So, yeah. Okay, going to the document. And scrolling through the Raiders. Starting with Yancey.
Yeah. Did the Raiders do enough in the offseason to help the offense be a weapon as opposed to a liability?
And I was saying that losing Josh Jacobs didn't help. Adding Brock Bowers did, but most of the moves they made were simply replacing departed pieces. So if you're doing 1-for-1 replacements, you don't get any better. So I don't think that they really are going to improve from last year. Pam said, I could see the Raiders coming in last in their division. What do they need to do? What do they have going for them? What part should be exciting? Dad said it's far easier to make a case for last than it is to make a case for second. So it's a race to the bottom between Vegas and Denver. They say Max Crosby can keep them in enough games to get to 500, but 6 and 8 wins is more like it. Dustin?
Yeah, so Jimmy Garoppolo was playing for this team, last season before, and obviously he was a quarterback that had played in the Super Bowl, but they've moved on. Did the Garoppolo experiment fail? Didn't the move on to O'Connell too quickly? And is O'Connell ready to be the full leader for this team? Cody?
I don't think O'Connell is ready to lead the team or any team for that matter, is what I said. He needs another year or two behind a veteran. Garoppolo is a great player, but he was too injury prone. So O'Connell needs another veteran in front of him, in my opinion.
Okay, last team. Let's jump over to the document. And Cody, you are leading the way with the Chargers. Whoops.
Okay. So the Chargers went 5-12, fourth in the AFC West. They've been struggling for the last couple of years. 8 total interceptions thrown, so that's second fewest. That's actually really good. Obviously, they have Justin Herbert. We can go ahead and move on to him. Justin Herbert has been a lot better than the team seems to be doing. He's a great quarterback. Comes from Oregon, tall, kind of just fits that perfect that typical type of quarterback. He was part of the whole injury kind of falling down of the team last year. I think it was like broke a finger or something he wasn't able to pass, and so that hurts the team for sure. So moving on to the offensive weapons, they did pick up J.K. Dobbins. However, he is another injury-prone player. He's been with Baltimore the last, I think, 3 or maybe even 4 years. Of all of those, maybe played a season, or maybe a season and a half. I'm not even sure. Maybe not even that much. He's pretty injury-prone. But when he's good or when he's healthy, he's good. Quentin Johnston, Josh Palmer were here last year. Not a whole lot to say about that. As you can see, there's a total of 4 touchdowns between them. I think Ladd McConkey is a exciting addition. He should be pretty good. Kind of shorter of a receiver, but he's quick and has good route running.
There's no way that guy's not Scottish with a name like that. Ladd McConkey.
Yeah,
probably is. Yeah, and I was just say Hayden Hurst coming over from Carolina is also a good addition.
Yeah, they had to cut a lot of players due to salary cap reasons. So Ladd McConkey might become the number 1 receiver over there.
All right, moving on to the offensive line. Joe Alt, first-round pick. I think he was the first offensive lineman off the board. I think he was 6th round pick, or the 6th overall pick. And so he's obviously will be starting at right tackle. Huge guy. He should do pretty well. Rashawn Slater, also great player. Other than that, I know the name Zion Johnson, but anything else to add here, Scott, or anyone else?
Bradley Bozeman is an upgrade at center.
They spelled Slayer wrong.
Okay, defensive line. Okay, Justin Eboigbe maybe is what I'm going to go with. 4th round pick out of Alabama. I think they're hoping and expecting him to do some pretty well work there. They got Otito. Why are they doing this to me? Otito Ogbanya, I think 21 tackles. You know, if you're just doing 21 tackles at the defensive tackle position, you got to get an upgrade. You got to do better than that. And then Morgan Fox, and I have no idea what CSU Pueblo even is, so good for him.
Colorado State Pueblo. It's down by Yancey. So,
okay, there you go.
I don't talk about Pueblo. It's all right. We can move on.
Yeah.
All right, Khalil Mack is
if you lived in Colorado, that's way funnier.
Khalil Mack, the star of the defense. He's obviously I think that's Pro Bowler, right? Not All Pro. Right.
Correct.
Okay. He was Pro Bowler, and he's been a Pro Bowler several times in his career. Still has it going. 17 sacks. Absolutely. I mean, I think that might be the most of all last year. Is it not?
Number three.
Number 3. Wow. Really? Okay. Anyway, 17 sacks is crazy. That's awesome. Junior Colson, Denzel Perryman is also a good addition from Houston. Joey Bosa obviously has been doing pretty well. He's not Nick Bosa, but he still does a good work.
Have to mention Junior Colson comes from
high
Michigan.
enough to fail an eye test. What's going on there?
What?
He comes from Michigan, by the way, with Jim Harbaugh, so he knows that system. So
he looks like he's from Colorado or California. What was that?
All right, secondary, we got Asante Samuel, who is the son of, I think it's Asante Samuel Sr. Is that right? Is that his name?
I'll have to think about that. I think so, but I have to think about that.
Yeah.
Anyway, son of a great, I think quarterback as well. I think his dad played corner as well. So he's been doing pretty well there. 63 tackles, 2 interceptions. Alohi Gilman, don't know the name, but obviously doing pretty well as well. 73 tackles, 2 interceptions. Derwin James is a great centerpiece there at strong safety, and Christian Fulton is a pretty good addition from Tennessee.
Is Derwin the only guy tackling anybody on this team? Jeez.
Pretty much.
Just about, yeah.
Yep. All right, let's go to the backups here for offense. Easton Stick, I don't even know that name, so let's hope that Herbert doesn't get injured. Otherwise,
his dad was a hockey player.
They got Gus Edwards, who followed J.K. Dobbins from Baltimore here. I do like Gus Edwards. He's a lot less injury prone than Dobbins is, and a good running back. Other than that, DJ Chark Attack. Good to see him there. Brendan Rice, son of obviously the GOAT, Jerry Rice. And so it's good to see him there. They got Will Dissly, pretty good tight end. Obviously, I'm biased, but from Seattle, I thought he was a really good tight end there. Anything else you want to add about this?
2 things. One serious, one not. The receivers. We talked about how all the receivers had to leave in free agency because of cap reasons, and you're adding Chark and Rice and Johnson. One of these guys is going to have to step up to be a big guy. I put my money on Jerry Rice's son as someone that might step up to do that. So the other thing, did you know that Easton Stick has a brother named Weston? No joke.
Just feels lazy if you ask me, but I like Kanye's music.
There's a dad sitting in his recliner, extremely happy with his life choices.
That's true.
Oh, one's east, one's west. They went that way.
I just said Winston.
This one, the east one, and that one, the west one.
That's like Sun 1 and Sun 2. I don't know
Anyway,
if Sun 3 is around here somewhere.
Okay, moving on. We're running out of time here. So we got the backups on defensive side of the ball. Puna Ford is a well, short but wide. He's a big bowling ball of a defensive tackle. Good to see Troy Dye. I think he's a good addition. He's great in Oregon. And Tuli Poloto. I'm not even sure why I'm trying to pronounce these names, but I thought for some reason I was thinking he was a rookie, but I guess not. Cam Hart is a rookie though, coming from Notre Dame. He's expected to be a good help in the secondary though. Anything else to add there?
Nope, not there.
Okay. Special teams, we got Cameron Dicker, who is the kicker.
Dicker the kicker.
Yep, Dicker the kicker. They got J.K. Scott. He's not kidding, and then Josh Harris. So, and then here's the headline. We got Jim Harbaugh coming over. He's what else does he need to do? I mean, he's kind of won at every level he's been at. He was at he's probably a lot more before this. I think he was at Stanford at one point too, but he was San Francisco, won there, took him to the Super Bowl in his second season. Second there. And then went to Michigan, literally just came off of a national championship win coming here to Los Angeles. So I guess the question is, with him, Greg Roman, Jesse Minter, what are they going to be able to put together here?
Yeah, Jim Harbaugh's won at FCS San Diego, and then at Stanford, then 49ers. Now at Michigan, he's won everywhere. Greg Roman was his offensive coordinator when they were with the 49ers together. So it's going to be that same system that the 49ers ran with Colin Kaepernick and things like that, except Justin Herbert's not going to be as mobile as Kaepernick.
All right.
Okay, last one to share. We're right at time, so scroll through the questions.
All right, and we start with me, so we'll go there. So was J.K. Dobbins a downgrade from Austin Eckler? If so, how much of a downgrade, and can Harbaugh win with him? Yancey.
Short answer is there hasn't been enough time that Dobbins has been healthy to lead me to believe that he could finish out the season uninjured. If you can't get on the field and show me that you can play, it's hard for me to put stock in you.
I already mentioned this, that Jim Harbaugh got the Niners to the Super Bowl in his second season. It did take him 8 years to get Michigan to the college football playoff and then won it a couple years later. What is the realistic timeline for him to get the Chargers to compete for championships, if ever?
There's a huge difference between college football and NFL. In college, you get to recruit. You get top players and you get to readjust your strategy and your lineup every year. But in the pros, you got multi-year contracts, you got different guarantees, players have their own agendas. And so there's a much longer timeline for those kind of things to happen. In college football, you sell out every single year. In NFL, you can't do that. So if it took 8 years at Michigan, I think the Chargers need to be much more patient than what maybe Charger fans are expecting. I suggest double that time. Maybe that's facetious of me to say, hey, you got to give them 15 years or something like that. But I would say, hey, granted that there's no major failures, such as multiple seasons missing playoffs in a row, you got to give them a lot of time.
I somewhat agree with that, but I mean, no NFL organization is going to give a coach 15 years to win a championship. Like at most, you see the Bengals giving Marvin Lewis 12 years before they finally fire him. That's the biggest you've ever seen. If Jim Harbaugh misses the playoffs 4 years in a row, he won't be back for a fifth year.
All right, so moving on, we have our dad. He said, tell me why the Chargers can't win 10 games this year. They seem to have all the pieces in place, but why isn't that realistic? And Pam said to that, maybe it's about cohesion and player morale. Perhaps there's an issue in the locker room rather than the talent on the field. And that, I think, is an insightful thought. So, and I'm not sure if it's true or not, but it could be.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that got us through. It took us almost 2 hours to get through that. We'll see if we can refine that a little bit next week to get a little bit more on time. Next week we'll be covering the AFC East and the NFC West. So we'll be covering Cody and my teams. Oh, thank you, Cody. Or Dustin, whatever your name is. Trauma back from your childhood, Dustin. So okay. Okay, AFC West. We all had the Chiefs in first. We all had the Chargers in second. There's really not much debate there. The debate comes in who finishes third or fourth. Most of us had the Broncos in third. Cody and most of us had the Raiders in third. So why don't you two speak? Cody?
Yeah, I mean, my expectation is that Bo Nix is going to be playing quarterback most of the year. That's what I'm thinking, and I think Bo Nix is the most ready quarterback coming out of the draft. I expect him to be great immediately. That's really the main reason that made me want to put them at third. Of course, I don't think Bo Nix is going to lead this team to the playoffs or anything like that, but I do think that he's going to keep them out of the cellar.
And Yancey, was it Denver loyalty or was it more than that?
I haven't thought the Raiders were better than anybody since John Madden was coaching them. Get out of here. I'm not putting the Raiders above the Broncos in anything.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, well, again, next week we'll be covering the AFC East and the NFC West, and we'll see if we can refine the time a little bit so we can get out of here a little bit earlier. I have a toddler screaming, so I'm going to go. So, okay. Bye, everyone.